Prosecutors say after a first date, Maxwell Anderson killed Sha-day Robinson before dismembering her body.
Take a look at pictures of 31-year-old DeAndre Cottrell, who was just found dead on Saturday. His body was in an abandoned shed in his hometown of Birmingham, Alabama.
A criminal justice advocate who spent time in prison before turning his life around, now facing murder charges after body parts were discovered inside 2 apartments.
Welcome back to Urban Crime Stories. In this episode, we will examine 3 strange and bizarre cases that happened in 2024. Before we continue, we would like to wish everyone who has supported our channel a happy and prosperous new year. Number 1. The bizarre case of Collin Small. On March 5, 2024, the close-knit community of Harlem was shattered by the gruesome death of 44-year-old Collin Small, a man known for his enduring friendship with Sheldon Johnson. What began as a seemingly ordinary night quickly unraveled into a nightmarish sequence of events involving gunshots, desperate pleas for mercy, and a chilling discovery. Surveillance footage and a harrowing crime scene revealed a tale of friendship turned fatal, as Sheldon Johnson stood accused of the brutal murder and dismemberment of his longtime ally. The shocking betrayal and the haunting details of the crime would leave all who knew them stunned and searching for answers. Collin Small and Sheldon Johnson Jr. came from vastly different worlds, yet they shared a connection that transcended their circumstances. Both born in the 1970s, their lives intersected during childhood, forming a friendship that would leave a lasting impression on them. Sheldon Johnson Jr. was born in 1975 in Brooklyn, New York, to a unique and challenging upbringing. He was the eldest child of Sheldon Johnson Sr. and Teresa Brunson, a deaf-mute couple whose backgrounds were as diverse as their struggles. Teresa, an African-American woman of partial Native American descent, hailed from Trenton, New Jersey, while Johnson Sr., an Italian-American immigrant, came from Sicily. The Johnsons resided on 112th Street and 5th Avenue in East Harlem, an area known for its socioeconomic difficulties. Poverty defined their existence as the parents' disabilities severely limited their ability to secure stable employment, forcing the family to rely on government assistance. The challenges in Sheldon Jr.'s household deepened when his father's addiction to drugs began to take a toll. By 1978, Johnson Sr. had separated from his wife and started a new family with another woman. However, this chapter was marred by devastating events. In 1986, Johnson Sr. was convicted of sexually assaulting his 7-year-old stepdaughter 3 times, a crime that stemmed from his second wife's refusal to have sexual relations with him due to her anger over his continued drug use. Despite the gravity of his actions, Johnson Sr. was sentenced to 5 years of probation rather than prison. A court order prohibited him from contacting his stepdaughter, and he moved out of the household. This incident not only fractured the family further, but also left an indelible mark on Sheldon Jr.'s life. Despite his father's actions, Sheldon Jr. maintained contact with him, showcasing a complex dynamic of loyalty and dependency. Fluent in American Sign Language, Sheldon Jr. often acted as his father's interpreter, a role that extended into morally ambiguous situations. As late as 1993, he assisted his father in buying crack cocaine, facilitating transactions by serving as a communicator between his father and drug dealers. This exposure to his father's world of addiction and crime highlighted the harsh realities Sheldon Jr. faced from an early age, forcing him to navigate an environment fraught with instability and danger. In contrast to Sheldon Jr.'s tumultuous upbringing, Collin Small's early life remains less detailed, but was also shaped by the challenges of growing up in Harlem. Born in 1979, Collin was raised in a community grappling with poverty and systemic inequities. Despite these circumstances, his life intersected with Sheldon Jr.'s, and the two formed a bond as children. Their friendship, forged in the shared streets of Harlem, bridged their differing backgrounds. While Sheldon's life was deeply affected by family struggles, Collin's presence provided a sense of camaraderie that balanced some of the turmoil Sheldon endured. Sheldon's criminal trajectory began early, with his first arrest occurring in 1985 when he was just 10 years old. After failing to stab his 5th-grade math teacher with a concealed kitchen knife, Sheldon turned to a fire extinguisher, spraying it in the teacher's face in a fit of frustration. Sheldon claimed that the teacher had routinely abused him, using a ruler to strike his hands as punishment for his involvement in schoolyard fights. This harsh treatment, compounded by a lack of support at home, led to his institutionalization in several psychiatric facilities, including Mount Sinai in Manhattan, Metropolitan Hospital, Pleasantville Cottage School, and Hawthorne Cedar Knolls. During his time in these institutions, Sheldon alleged that he was often sedated and subjected to further trauma, including being molested by a psychiatrist while he was at Hawthorne. By the time he was 12, Sheldon had dropped out of school and become homeless, living as a squatter in various locations. It was around this time that he was recruited by a childhood friend, a 19-year-old named Shamik, to work as a drug runner. Over the next 7 years, Sheldon became deeply entrenched in the drug trade, trafficking narcotics, including cocaine, from Buffalo to Pennsylvania. His involvement in the narcotics ring led to multiple arrests, and he eventually rose to a leadership position in the operation. In 1994, after a daring escape from the police, jumping from a fifth-floor apartment where he lived with his girlfriend and infant son, Sheldon was eventually captured at a hospital and charged with drug trafficking, kidnapping, and a series of other felonies. He spent 2 years on Rikers Island but was acquitted in 1996. During his time in jail, Sheldon joined the Bloods Gang, an affiliation that was sealed when a Latin King gang member slashed his cheek with a razor blade during a confrontation. Upon his release, Sheldon's criminal activity escalated. He began a string of robberies targeting those who owed him protection money from his time in prison. One robbery turned violent when he shot a man in the back as the victim tried to escape. In 1997, under the alias Thomas Smalls, he was arrested in Manhattan for possession of stolen property. Months later, on December 21st, he was apprehended again, this time for attempted murder and robbery. In 1999, he rejected a plea deal that would have sentenced him to 23 years in prison. Instead, he was handed a 50-year sentence without the possibility of parole. His time behind bars included stints at multiple prisons throughout the state of New York, where he reportedly served time alongside Collin Small. In April 2008, while Sheldon remained incarcerated, tragedy struck his family once more when his 14-year-old son, also named Sheldon Johnson, was charged with manslaughter. The incident occurred when the younger Johnson attacked 24-year-old Columbia University student Ming-Hui Yu in Morningside Heights. The unprovoked attack, encouraged by his friends, involved the teenager punching Yu in the back of the head, causing him to stumble into the path of an oncoming SUV. The vehicle fatally struck Yu, devastating the community and leaving Johnson's son to face serious legal consequences. Though charged with manslaughter, the boy avoided conviction and was instead sentenced to 18 months in a juvenile detention boot camp. Following his release, he relocated to Florida to live with his mother, attempting to move past the tragic incident. Meanwhile, Sheldon worked to better himself while serving his sentence. He earned a GED and pursued higher education through a correspondence program funded by Cornell University, ultimately gaining an associate degree in liberal arts. His time in prison also saw a personal transformation as he reconciled with his estranged father in 2010. By then, Sheldon's father had turned his life around, becoming sober in 2002 and remarrying. Their reunion marked a rare moment of healing amidst years of turmoil. After his release, Sheldon sought to use his experiences to help others, taking up work as a paralegal for prison rehabilitation activist groups. His commitment to change reflected a stark contrast to his turbulent past. Collin Small, Johnson's longtime friend, faced his own legal challenges. Twice convicted of felony assault, Small served a decade-long sentence in Sing Sing Correctional Facility before being paroled in October 2018. Collin's family described the bond between him and Sheldon as unshakable, noting that Collin had been a steadfast supporter of Sheldon after his release from prison. Their shared experiences of hardship and redemption seemed to have strengthened their friendship. Both men had weathered years of personal struggle, leaning on one another during their respective journeys toward rebuilding their lives. However, despite their enduring friendship, events took a tragic and unforeseen turn on March 5, 2024. What began as a bond rooted in shared experiences of adversity and survival ended in devastating loss. On that fateful day, 44-year-old Collin Small met a tragic and untimely end. marking a somber conclusion to the story of two men whose lives had been intertwined for decades. The circumstances surrounding Collin's death underscored the fragile nature of even the strongest connections and left those close to both men grappling with profound grief. Collin was last seen alive at approximately 10 p.m. on March 4, 2024, by the superintendent of his apartment complex. Surveillance footage captured Collin entering his apartment alone, a seemingly ordinary night. However, the following morning took a dark turn when a tenant reported hearing 2 gunshots around 1 a.m., followed by a man's desperate cries, "Please don't, I have a family," before 2 more gunshots rang out. Alarmed, the superintendent reviewed CCTV footage from the floor where Collin lived. The footage revealed a man, later identified as Sheldon Johnson, entering and exiting Collin's apartment multiple times. Sheldon appeared in different outfits during each instance, including hats, a blonde wig, and even clothing matching what Collin had been wearing the previous evening. At one point, Johnson was seen carrying cleaning supplies in a blue bin, later confirmed to contain dismembered parts of Collin's body. At 11:30 a.m., the superintendent contacted 911, requesting a wellness check on Collin. The police arrived at the apartment at 8:25 p.m., where they encountered Sheldon. When questioned about Collin's whereabouts, Sheldon claimed that Collin had gone upstate. However, the officers' suspicions grew, and a subsequent search of the apartment led to a grisly discovery. A human torso and a foot were found in a plastic bin, while Collin's head and other body parts were recovered from the freezer. The horrifying scene left no doubt about the brutality of the crime that had taken place within the confines of the apartment. As investigators delved deeper, the evidence painted a chilling picture of the events that unfolded. Johnson had reportedly shot Collin multiple times in the head at around 1 a.m. on March 5th, killing him instantly. What followed was an act of calculated cruelty, as Sheldon dismembered Collin's body and attempted to clean up the crime scene, likely in an effort to conceal his actions. The discovery of the dismembered remains and the CCTV footage left little room for ambiguity about Sheldon's involvement in the heinous act. Sheldon was swiftly taken into custody, and the case against him began to take shape. He was indicted on multiple charges, including murder, robbery, burglary, weapon possession, evidence tampering, and concealment of a human body. The sheer brutality of the killing, coupled with Johnson's apparent attempts to cover his tracks, shocked the community and left many grappling with the incomprehensible violence. Number 2, the tragic case of Sha-day Robinson. On a crisp April morning in 2024, the peaceful shores of Lake Michigan concealed a dark secret that would shake the Milwaukee community to its core. A severed human leg washed ashore, launching a harrowing investigation. Within days, authorities identified the remains as 19-year-old Sha-day Robinson, a promising college student who vanished after a first date. As investigators unraveled the chilling events, they uncovered a tale of betrayal, violence, and unimaginable loss, leading to a courtroom showdown that left a city demanding justice. Sha-day was born in May 2005 to her mother, Sheena Scarborough, marking the beginning of a life filled with promise and potential. From the outset, Sha-day embodied the qualities of a loving daughter, a cherished sister, and a dear friend to many. Hailing from the state of Mississippi, Sha-day's journey took her to Milwaukee, where she was on the cusp of a significant milestone in her life. With graduation from Milwaukee Area Technical College looming on the horizon, Sha-day was poised to embark on a career path in criminal justice, driven by a passion for justice and a desire to make a positive impact in her community. On April 1st, 2024, Sha-day had eagerly anticipated a first date with 33-year-old Maxwell Anderson, a moment she had been looking forward to with palpable excitement. In the days leading up to their rendezvous, Sha-day couldn't contain her enthusiasm, even sharing her anticipation with her co-workers. As the appointed evening arrived, Sha-day exchanged text messages with Anderson, expressing her eagerness for their seafood-themed outing. Dressed in a casual yet stylish ensemble of ripped jeans and a crisp white shirt, Sha-day made her way to the local seafood restaurant where Anderson had once been employed, her heart aflutter with anticipation. After Anderson's arrival, and what seemed like an enjoyable time spent together with Sha-day, a feeling of discomfort started to linger at Sha-day's workplace. This was quite unusual for her, as she didn't turn up for work the next day, which caused concern among those familiar with her. Concerned friends and colleagues attempted to reach out to Sha-day throughout the day, their calls and messages going unanswered, heightening the sense of apprehension surrounding her whereabouts. The mounting silence served as an ominous indication that something was amiss, setting off a chain of events that would ultimately lead to a harrowing search for answers in the days to come. The disappearance of Sha-day Robinson took a chilling turn on April 2, 2024, when she was reported missing in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, just one day after her ill-fated date. The morning following her rendezvous, authorities made a grim discovery. Sha-day's vehicle, a 2020 Honda Civic, engulfed in flames. The inferno had wrought extreme damage to the car, consuming its interior in a devastating blaze. Despite the destruction, investigators managed to identify remnants of the outfit Sha-day had worn on the night of her date, as well as a portion of an iPhone consistent with her device, amidst the charred wreckage. As the investigation intensified, a disturbing development unfolded later that same day. Police responded to a call regarding a gruesome find at Warnemont Park, a serene locale in the Milwaukee suburb of Cudahy. Amidst the tranquil surroundings, a human leg was discovered on the beach, conspicuously severed at the hip, a macabre indication of the horrors that had unfolded. An examination revealed that the leg belonged to a black woman, approximately 5 feet tall, bearing the telltale signs of violence. Preliminary DNA evidence swiftly confirmed the leg's grim identity as belonging to Sha-day Robinson, plunging her loved ones and the community into a state of shock and grief. The grim discoveries didn't end there. On April 6, 2024, as law enforcement officials meticulously combed the area surrounding the site where Sha-day's car had been found, additional remains surfaced, further unraveling the tragic narrative. Among the somber findings were another human foot and fragments of what appeared to be human flesh, all unmistakably linked to the same individual, Sha-day Robinson. The grim procession of discoveries painted a haunting picture of violence and loss, leaving investigators and the community reeling as they grappled with the harrowing reality of Sha-day's fate. The disturbing details surrounding Sha-day's disappearance and subsequent murder continued to unfold as phone records obtained by a concerned friend and her mother shed light on the events of that fateful night. Through a location-sharing app, the records traced Sha-day's phone movements from the seafood restaurant to a nearby sports bar, then to the residence of her date, Anderson, and ultimately to the desolate park where her remains were tragically discovered. In a harrowing testament to the depth of depravity underlying the case, a complaint filed by authorities outlined compelling evidence linking Anderson to the heinous crimes. Surveillance footage, eyewitness testimonies, and damning phone records all painted a damning portrait of his involvement. Moreover, investigators uncovered blood evidence within Anderson's residence, alongside the chilling discovery of several gasoline containers, a sinister indication of premeditated violence and attempts to conceal the grisly truth. The gravity of the evidence presented in the complaint left no room for doubt. Anderson stood accused of intentionally murdering Sha-day and subsequently dismembering her in a calculated effort to conceal his heinous crime. The timeline provided by the records pointed to a narrow window between Sha-day's arrival at Anderson's residence and his subsequent departure for the Warnemont Park, the tragic nexus of events that sealed Sha-day's fate and shattered the lives of those who knew and loved her. As the legal proceedings unfolded in the wake of Sha-day's tragic demise, Maxwell Anderson faced a litany of charges reflecting the heinous nature of the crimes attributed to him. Charged with first-degree intentional homicide, mutilating a corpse, and arson, Anderson's appearance in court marked a pivotal moment in the pursuit of justice for Sha-day and her grieving loved ones. The solemn setting of the Milwaukee County Courthouse Criminal Justice Facility served as the backdrop for Anderson's preliminary hearing, where the weight of the accusations against him hung heavy in the air. Despite the passage of over 3 agonizing weeks since Sha-day's disappearance and subsequent discovery as a victim of homicide, the pursuit of truth and accountability pressed forward with unwavering determination. In a courtroom fraught with emotion, Maxwell Anderson stood before the bench and entered a plea of not guilty to the charges leveled against him, a defiant stance that only served to deepen the anguish of those who sought closure and justice in the wake of Sha-day's senseless death. As the legal proceedings unfolded, a puzzling twist emerged in the form of forensic evidence. While blood was indeed discovered at Anderson's residence, forensic analysis revealed that it did not match Sha-day's DNA, a perplexing revelation that introduced new layers of complexity to the case. Despite this discrepancy, Anderson remained in custody, his status as the prime suspect in Sha-day's murder unshaken by the absence of a direct forensic link. The wheel of justice continues to turn with measured deliberation, as prosecutors marshal their evidence and prepare to present their case against Anderson in a court of law. For Sha-day's loved ones, the journey toward closure remains fraught with uncertainty, as they grapple with the profound loss of a cherished daughter, sister, and friend. As the legal process unfolds, there is hope that the truth will prevail, and that Sha-day's memory would be honored through the pursuit of justice in her name. Number 3. The strange case of DeAndre Cottrell. On July 4, 2024, a 4th of July celebration in Birmingham, Alabama turned deadly for 31-year-old DeAndre Cottrell, a beloved doctoral student. 2 days later, his body was found in a shed just blocks from his family's home. With unsettling clues and the erratic behavior of a close associate, Julian Morris, the community is left reeling as they seek answers in a case shrouded in mystery and tragedy. DeAndre was described by friends and family as a loving brother, a dedicated friend, and a person who always put others at ease. DeAndre's life had been marked by academic and personal achievements from an early age. He graduated from Woodlawn High School in 2011, where he was already recognized for his ambition and charm. His academic journey didn't stop there, as he briefly attended Auburn University at Montgomery before earning both a bachelor's and a master's degree in marketing from Jacksonville State University. Always striving for more, DeAndre was in the process of working toward his doctorate, a testament to his relentless drive and commitment to self-improvement. DeAndre was a man of many talents, wearing several hats in both his professional and personal life. He was part of the entertainment group Ski Boys Entertainment, where he combined his passion for dance with his marketing expertise. Outside of the entertainment industry, DeAndre freelanced as a marketing consultant, helping businesses and individuals manage their social media accounts. His versatility didn't end there. He also worked as a bartender, provided massage therapy, and explored photography. His ability to manage so many different roles spoke to his drive and ambition. In his personal life, DeAndre had been in a long-term, committed relationship with Derek Williams, a love that had stood the test of time. The two had been together for 14 years, starting when DeAndre was just 17 years old. Their relationship was deeply rooted in understanding, companionship, and mutual respect. 3 years ago, their relationship evolved when Julian Morris joined them in a polyamorous partnership. The three men lived and worked together, forming a close-knit, supportive unit. Despite the unconventional nature of their relationship, those who knew them described it as strong and filled with love. They shared not only their lives, but also many of their professional ventures, creating a dynamic that was both intimate and collaborative. DeAndre's life, however, took a tragic and unexpected turn on July 4, 2024. What should have been a day of celebration turned into a day of unimaginable loss. The promising future that DeAndre had carefully built was cut short in a moment, leaving behind shock and disbelief. His friends, family, and community were left grappling with the sudden and inexplicable tragedy. DeAndre and Julian arrived in Birmingham around 6 p.m. on July 4th. It was a special moment for DeAndre as it was his first time visiting his sister's new home, which she shared with Brian Harris and their children. The family had always been close, and typically when you saw one, you would see all three: DeAndre, Julian, and Derek. But this time, Derek wasn't with them. The family had gathered at the large Harris home on 4th Avenue South to celebrate the holiday together, a time that should have been filled with laughter and festivities. Around 9 p.m., DeAndre stepped inside to check on his dog, concerned about the loud fireworks. Julian remained outside with the family for a short while before he too made his way indoors. The rest of the family stayed outside, keeping an eye on the children as the fireworks continued. At this point, there was nothing unusual. It was just a typical family celebration. About an hour later, however, Julian suddenly reappeared, approaching Brian with alarming news. He said that DeAndre had jumped out of a window. Confused, Brian pointed out that none of the windows in the house opened. Julian quickly corrected himself, stating that DeAndre had actually jumped off the balcony. Immediately, concern spread through the group, and the family sprang into action. With flashlights in hand, they began searching the backyard, the alleyways, and even circled around the block, trying to find any trace of DeAndre. During their search, they stumbled upon several of his belongings scattered across the yard. His sunglasses, cell phone, and one of his shoes were found, while his hat was seen hanging on a fence post just beneath the second-floor balcony. Despite these scattered clues, there was still no sign of him, deepening the family's sense of unease. As the minutes turned into hours with no sight of DeAndre, the family's worry turned into panic. By 11 p.m., they decided to contact the Birmingham police, reporting DeAndre as a missing person. Birmingham police arrived on the scene and took down the details of his disappearance. They joined the search, driving around the neighborhood with spotlights in an effort to locate DeAndre. Yet, as the night wore on, no new leads surfaced, leaving everyone grappling with an overwhelming sense of dread. What had begun as a festive family gathering had now become a night of fear and confusion, with no one able to explain what had happened to DeAndre. Family and friends searched tirelessly for DeAndre until about 1:30 a.m. on Friday. As exhaustion set in, Brian and DeAndre's sister told Julian that they needed to rest. Julian had planned to sleep at DeAndre's sister's house, but she suggested it might be better for him to stay at her mother's house a few blocks away. Julian agreed, but acted strangely. He got into his car but didn't drive off, first claiming DeAndre had the car keys, then saying he had them but didn't know where they were. His behavior was erratic and bizarre, unlike anything the family had seen from him before. It seemed as though he was under the influence of something, although this was not typical for him. Ultimately, Julian walked to DeAndre's mother's house, and DeAndre's sister called her mother to ensure he arrived safely. At that point, no one suspected him of any wrongdoing. All they knew was that their brother was missing, and Julian's behavior had become increasingly confusing ever since he claimed DeAndre had jumped from the balcony. A few hours later, around 4 a.m., DeAndre's sister was awakened by loud music coming from outside. To her shock, Julian had returned and was trying to force his way into her home. He was using his shoulder to shove the door and wiggling the handle as though attempting to break in. Alarmed, DeAndre's sister quickly called for her older sons and husband to come downstairs. Fearing something was seriously wrong, she also reached out to her brother, Tim Cottrell, who parked up the street to keep an eye on the situation while waiting for the police. When officers arrived, DeAndre's sister explained that Julian was trying to break into the house. The police managed to calm him down and get him to leave, but Julian soon returned, making the family increasingly uneasy. Unable to sleep, the family gathered on the porch, discussing the unsettling events as they tried to process what was happening. Not long after, they saw Julian approaching the house again, and they immediately called the police for a second time. When officers arrived, Julian behaved even more erratically, posing, dancing, and having sudden outbursts. At one point, he claimed to be a community serviceman like the officers, stating that he did the same job as them. This behavior was completely out of character for Julian, who had previously served as a U.S. Marine. Police issued him a trespass warning, meaning he would be arrested if he returned, and Julian left, but the tension lingered. Between 6:30 and 7 a.m., the family saw Julian one final time. When he spotted Brian and his sons, he ran and hid in a ditch. The family desperately wanted to talk to him, hoping he might have information about DeAndre's whereabouts. By now, they had gathered video and audio recordings of Julian telling them they would never find DeAndre, claiming he had committed suicide. With the situation growing more dire, De'Eric Williams, DeAndre's partner, had rushed to Birmingham from Atlanta, and the family continued searching for answers. On Friday, the family found a key piece of evidence: home surveillance footage from a neighbor. The footage showed DeAndre, wearing only one shoe, running through backyards and jumping over a gate. He appeared frantic, as though he were running for his life, searching for a place to hide. The footage ended near the 7800 block of 5th Avenue South. Tragically, this was the same area where, 2 days later, police would find DeAndre's body. On July 6th, authorities discovered him in a shed behind a vacant house on 5th Avenue South, bringing a heartbreaking conclusion to the search for DeAndre Cottrell, a vibrant man whose life ended in mysterious and tragic circumstances. Birmingham police believe Julian Morris holds crucial information regarding DeAndre's death. Although Morris had spoken with officers before DeAndre's body was found, neither he, his family, nor his legal counsel have cooperated with detectives since then. On July 10th, Julian's attorney released a statement defending his client, emphasizing that Morris is a college-educated Marine veteran with no prior criminal record. The statement refuted false rumors, stressing that Julian deeply loved DeAndre and is also grieving. Under legal advice, Julian will not make any further public statements. Birmingham police have yet to release an official timeline of events. The only detailed account has come from DeAndre's family. The Jefferson County Medical Examiner's Office ruled DeAndre's death a homicide. Despite the ruling of homicide, DeAndre's death remains unclassified. Julian's erratic behavior after DeAndre's disappearance, along with his refusal to cooperate, has fueled suspicion. Investigators continue to work on the case, but new details have been scarce, leaving DeAndre's family and community desperate for answers. What are your thoughts about these bizarre stories? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. If you are new to the channel and like the content, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel for upcoming episodes. Your support is greatly appreciated. Until next time, I will see you with another episode of Urban Crime Stories.